Obviously, this is an important meeting. You want to receive some additional information in regards to our development efforts in the city of Richmond. I would ask you, if you don't mind, to try to come down as close as you can. It's important that we be able to make sure that certainly there's not an issue of being able to hear us. But I want you to come in as close as you will. This meeting is scheduled to last for 2 hours. We want to make sure that we don't keep you much longer than that unless you decide that you're not finished with the business at hand and you would like to stay longer, and if that's the case, then certainly we will.
That's not my statement, right?
We want to make sure that we have an opportunity to have a full presentation from several persons that are on the agenda, on the program that you have in front of you. But we also want to make sure that we reserve time to hear you and to hear your voice and to make sure that your concerns and questions are addressed as part of the process. So, this presentation has been made in several sectors throughout the city and will continue to be made in different sectors of the city. The city council members are currently also receiving presentations through a lot of the standing committees as well as presentations to the full body. We want to first thank the administration, Mr. Marshall, your staff, for the many hours that you all have invested in making presentations around the city. As council has asked you to be a part of that effort. We know that has added a tremendous number of hours to your work schedule, but we're grateful for your service there, for your professionalism that your staff always brings, and your willingness to be a part of answering our questions and being a part of this process. Joining me this morning is Dr. Newbell, who is the council representative of the 7th District, and I'm going to give her an opportunity to say good morning to you all. And after that, we're going to follow the program as it is before you. With, first of all, we have Reverend Dolores McQueen will not be with us this morning. Unfortunately, she had a funeral to attend, and as much as she wanted to, was trying to be here to talk specifically as it relates to the Slave Trade Commissioner's works and heritage site. In her stead, the Reverend Sylvester Turner will be here to give us some insight as to what's been happening with the slave trade and what's the significance of this development in regards to the historic account and the preservation of the heritage and our history for this site. We will also have a presentation by Jack Berry with Venture Richmond, and his charge is to primarily talk not so much specifically about the development here, but in addition to that, to talk about what has been happening in downtown Richmond and the overall strategy of how they're looking at, as I call, getting rid of some of the broken windows in downtown. There are lots of gaps in our development process, so we're glad that Jack Berry is able to join us from Venture Richmond. And then the bulk of the morning will be a presentation by Mr. Marshall and his staff specifically to
simply, again, want to say thank you for taking the time to come out. Thank you for caring enough about our city and what's going on to come forth and to share your comments, your ideas, your suggestions. And with that, I just want to get right into the programs that Councilwoman Robertson has already shared with you. So with that, the Reverend.
And after the presentations, we're going to ask each person that is on the agenda for a presentation to come forward and have a seat here so that any questions are asked, you guys can be affirmed.
First of all, I'd like to say good morning to everybody. We'd also like to say that the bus is not the only one that have a funeral this morning. I have a funeral at 11 o'clock. So when I share what I share and have to leave, it's not because I'm trying to run or it's unwilling to answer questions. One of my parishioners, family members, had died and I need to be there to support them. So for those of you that do know me, I don't run from statements that I make. I usually stand there and I will deal with whatever you have to ask her. So if you have questions that I can't answer for you on this morning, you're free to contact me and I will answer any question that you might have. As a slave trail commissioner and being a member of the Slave Trail Commission, we have always taken the statement that the stadium is a fight between City Council and other folk. Our position has always been about the development of the history of the slave trade. And that remains to be our position. We have been working for over 10 years to develop and preserve that history. And we will continue to work to develop and preserve that history. And the work that we have done over the last 10 years will attest to the integrity in which we have done that. We don't plan to violate or compromise the integrity in which we have worked to preserve this valuable and important history. What the development of the bottom does for us in doing that is it creates an opportunity for us to create a place, a museum, where we can compile this history, we can preserve this history, we can allow the legacy of those who gave their lives for us to be preserved and to be told in spirit and in truth. That is what we have been fighting for a long time. And that is what we will continue to fight for. For the Slave Trail Commission, this isn't about a baseball stadium or not. It's about the development of the bottom and our ability to tell this story in a way that our children and our grandchildren will be able to benefit from. I personally have done research on what is taking place in New York and the preservation of the African burial ground there. I have visited Tulsa, Oklahoma on 4 different occasions to look at how a stadium there impacted the city. I have been to Birmingham, Alabama, and Montgomery, Alabama to look at how they have preserved their history. Some of it is Civil War history or slavery history. Some of it is civil rights history. But the Slave Trade Commission has done its homework and looking at ways to preserve and honor this history with integrity. And I would just let you all know that whether you are for the stadium or not, that we don't lose sight of the development that is necessary for to take place in the bottom so that this history can be preserved. Again, for the commission, it's not about a stadium or not, but it is about the development of an area that will allow us to tell our story in a way that our children and our grandchildren will benefit. And as I close and take my seat and head my way to this funeral, we have been doing a lot of research to make sure that we don't lose sight of what our mission is. Okay, and our mission has been to preserve that history and to tell that story in spirit and in truth and with high integrity. And the thing that we have at this point is the fact that everything that the commission has done, everything that is posted in Richmond about this history will indicate that it's been done with high integrity, and it's been done, the story is told accurately, and the story is told in a way that others can grow and benefit from. Thank you.
Thank you, Reverend Turner. Appreciate that. I was going to just make the statement that the Slave Trade Commission is not on test here. There's a place and an opportunity for us to do that, and we welcome the opportunity to do that. It is appointed by City Council. We're grateful for the person who serves, and we would be more than happy, Council will be more than happy to entertain any questions and concerns that you have about that, and we would plan a special meeting if necessary to address those concerns. But that's, I appreciate Reverend Turner's passion and his thoughts. We have next on the agenda a discussion by Jack Berry, Venture Richmond.
So I'm Jack Berry with Venture Richmond. Venture Richmond is an organization that promotes and markets downtown. We produce festivals and events like the Second Street Festival and the Richmond Folk Festival, and we manage property from the city, including Browns Island and the Canal Walk. So we're all about promoting downtown. We're bullish about downtown. We love downtown. We love talking about downtown. And I've been asked this morning to give you a brief presentation about downtown generally, just about what's been going on in downtown over the last decade. And then we'll get to talking more specifically about the Shaco development. And I'll talk about that a little bit. And then I understand Byron Marshall will come up and talk to you about the finances of the mayor's proposed plan. So let's just talk about downtown a little bit. If the clicker works. So we've come a long way, right? Downtown went through a really, really bad period where everybody was leaving downtown, and everybody was really concerned about the future of downtown. Downtown was dirty, it was crime-ridden. We lost all our retail. We were losing a lot of office to places like the Boulders and Innsbruck, and people were very concerned about downtown, and it was a very bleak picture. It's the old Tallhammer's department store. Remember that? Remember the scene on Broad Street there? This is the 7th to 8th block on Broad Street in the early 90s. That was our downtown, and people were abandoning downtown, and the future was really, really bleak. But something happened. A number of major companies didn't give up on downtown. They invested in downtown. They committed themselves to downtown. Companies like Dominion that built this trading floor on Tredegar Street. This clicker's not working very well. Can you advance for me? Companies like UNOS that moved from the boulders to downtown Nevada Technology Research Park. Altria that built its research headquarters in Biotech Park and brought hundreds of employees to downtown Richmond. Tobacco Road, the Edgeworth Building and other developments in Shockoe Bottom, making use of old warehouses and manufacturing buildings for office and residential. Midwest Vacant, they could have gone anywhere in the country. They chose the Richmond metropolitan area, and then they could have gone anywhere in the region. They could have gone in Henrico, that's where they were headquartered. And they moved their headquarters to downtown Richmond, and it was just a really bullish sign for Richmond to bring employees and high technology jobs to Richmond and to downtown. We've seen VCU expand downtown, adding to the student body, bringing the engineering school and business school across Belvedere Street into downtown, and that has also been very bullish for downtown. The Canal Walk has been very successful. It's a beautiful place. It celebrates the history of our city, and there's been some economic development that's happened around it, including the Vistas condos and a number of other projects. The latest project is the Reynolds project called The Locks. And that's the Italian building pictured there. There will be a bridge soon crossing the Hacksaw Canal. But lots of development along the canal that is mostly residential as young people are attracted to downtown living. Who would have ever thought that Tobacco Road, that string of buildings along Dock Street that were vacant for decades, would come back to life as residences for young professionals primarily. The residential boom in downtown is just amazing. It's all over downtown. It's not just in Shockoe, but it's very heavily concentrated in Shockoe. There's just a huge demand among young professionals in particular to live downtown in this environment. They grew up in the suburbs on a quiet cul-de-sac. They hung out at the malls. They've come back from college. They've gotten jobs, and they want to move to downtown Richmond into these loft apartments that are all over downtown. So it happens to be an apartment on Broad Street. Swimming pools. You saw the John Marshall Hotel that has been turned into apartments. The apartment boom in downtown is very real and continues to grow and develop. And now a lot of that development has jumped the river over to Manchester. Manchester was more of a sort of pioneering area, more industrial area, and it was difficult to get people to want to live in Manchester. But all of a sudden, all kinds of things are starting to happen in Manchester as that becomes a really trendy, hip neighborhood, again, mostly for young professionals and creative types. The whole restaurant scene in downtown has just blossomed as Richmond has become a real, come to have a very, very exciting food scene, which again is very attractive to young professionals that we're trying to lure to Richmond and to downtown Richmond. The National Jackson Memorial National Theater. Entrepreneurs creating startup companies all over downtown. That has to be on Broad Street. This is Tumblr over Manchester. These are the Ledbury shirt guys. Seeing lots and lots of startups, lots and lots of young professionals creating new businesses, setting up shop in downtown. Again, downtown is just a magnet for these young people who love this urban lifestyle and that we have in Richmond. Richmond, for many years, was sort of a cynical place. You know, we couldn't get anything right. You know, the 6th Street Marketplace was a disaster. We lost the Braves. We've had a history of being down on ourselves and not being positive and optimistic about the future. But all of a sudden, over the last 5 or 10 years, people are starting to sense a real pride, I think, about Richmond. Maybe it's just me, but it seems to me that there's a real strong pride in RVA and in Richmond developing, and it's symbolized by the RVA logo that has been adopted by people all over and embraced as a symbol of creativity and pride in our city. Again, we're all about young people. We're all about young professionals. We're all about the next generation. We're all about the future and making this city a really vibrant, exciting, attractive place for young professionals to be. And that includes the food scene, that includes the creative companies, that includes the music scene, festivals, includes cycling, the 2015 bike race that's coming. Again, festivals, including the folk festival, which last year didn't draw so many people because it rained for 3 days in a row, but the year before that drew almost 200,000 people to downtown Richmond over a weekend. TEDx RVA, another event that Venture Richmond produced in partnership with a lot of people in the community. Again, a symbol of our commitment to creativity and innovation and reaching out to young people. Downtown Richmond is just a beautiful, beautiful place. We have great history. Our city has great bones. It has great architecture. It's a real sense of place. And we can build on that. Nobody else has it. We've got it. It's authenticity. It's beauty. It's architecture. Beauty. It's lifestyle on the river. It's the canal. It's great architecture. It's cobblestones. It's restaurants. It's a skyline. I'm really bullish on downtown. I think that you should be too. It's partly because of the people that are downtown. There's so many wonderful people that live downtown, that work downtown, and give downtown this incredible personality. Whether it's a coffee shop, or you've probably seen some of these people. This is the future of our downtown. This is why we're so bullish about downtown. This is why we want to be so supportive of downtown residential developments downtown. It's why we want to be supportive of music, of art, of the art district. You ever been in the Martin Agency parking deck? When you drive into the parking deck, this lady who's the attendant sings to you. Where else in Richmond could you find that? So that's a few slides on downtown, telling the story of a downtown that's come a long way in the last 10 or 15 years. A downtown that's really poised for future growth. We're becoming a really hip place. We're a place that young people are attracted to, just like Boulder, Portland, Seattle, Austin, Texas, Raleigh. We're one of those places that's on the radar screen for young professionals as a hip, cool place to live. And downtown is benefiting from that. And the city is benefiting from that. And the tax base is benefiting from that. Most people wouldn't know it, but Richmond is growing at a faster rate. Its population is growing at a faster rate than either Hanover, Henrico, or Chesterfield. Richmond lost population to the counties for the last 30 years that I've been here. This is a completely new phenomenon to see people migrating back to the city, choosing the city over the counties, wanting to be part of this next phase of our development. So I'm really bullish about downtown. I'm really excited about the future of downtown. So let's now turn to the ballpark site and to the Chaco site. I'm going to talk to you about, I'm going to again show you some more pictures, and then Byron's going to talk to you about what it means to the city in terms of economic development and impact on our city. So this is the site of the ballpark. This is, if you can see the pointer, that's home base, first base, second base, third base. That's the Lyman's Bakery building. And so you can imagine that the outfield fence kind of swings around like this. And this right here is the Exxon station. It was referenced earlier, Reverend Turner, as a place that they're aware of a significant site underneath the Exxon building. But this is the site. And it's in a floodplain, as you can see on the left there. And it's looked like that for decades. And most of the site, as you can see, is broken up surface parking lots, that chain link fences and decay. And I've made a big point about the residential development and boom, I keep saying, of residential development in downtown, and particularly in Chaco. But why hasn't this site been developed for residential? Why are these sites looking like this decades later, even though we're getting infill residential development in other parts of Chaco? It's because this area is in a floodplain. You can't develop apartments in a floodplain because there's a law that says that you have to be able to get an ambulance to a resident of an apartment building, even in a flood. So if somebody's having a heart attack and they call 911, you've got to be able to get an emergency vehicle to them, even in a flood. You can't do that here because this site floods. So how can we make this area available for residential development and for additional development? You can solve the floodplain problem. But the problem is it takes $250 million to solve the floodplain problem here. It involves a big tunnel drilled underneath the James River. Completely out of the question, I assume, a number that big. Another way you can do it is build a bridge to high ground. So you can build an apartment building on the site and then build a bridge from the first floor over to high ground. And the problem with that is that no apartment developer has the resources or can afford to include the bridge to high ground into his apartment complex and still make the numbers work. So that's out. The third thing you can do to make this floodplain area available for development, and again, we're talking about tax-paying development that brings residences, but also taxes to the city's budget to help with schools and safety and residential development. The third way you can do this is to put a ballpark here and have a concourse that goes around the edges of the field and build that concourse 1 foot above the 100-year floodplain level. Now you can get emergency vehicles onto the concourse. Departments open, the front door of the apartment opens onto the concourse, and now this entire area, it can be developed for residential uses. So here's the site. You see the ballpark there. The flooded area that I was pointing to is right here, where there would be an apartment building. There would be an apartment building here. There would be a Kroger grocery store and a Hyatt hotel and a very large parking garage and a lot of apartments developed north of Broad. So this is Broad Street right here. This is the double row of train trestles that separates the ballpark and apartment building and hotel site from the African slave burial ground, which is here, north of Broad and west of the trestle, and the Lumpkins Jail site, which is number 5 right here, which again is west of the train shed, which is here, and the trestle, which is here. So here's what it would look like from an aerial view. And again, this is the apartment building I was talking about in that flooded area. Here's another apartment building. Here's the ballpark stadium, if you will. This is the 17th Street Farmers Market that would be completely redeveloped into a gathering place for Churchill and Shot the Bottom. This is the hotel, grocery store, apartment building, parking. This is the slave burial ground up here. This is the Lumpkins Jail site right here. This is the train shed here that will also be renovated as part of this project. So there are a number of elements to the project. The first element is the heritage site. And this is the conceptual plan for the Lumpkins Jail Pavilion. It's designed by Bert Pinnock, that used to be president of BAM Architecture and now works as a principal at Baskerville Architects. It's a very contemporary, very modern structure. Some people think it should be more classical. I've seen letters that actually talking about classical architecture like the state capitol. This is a very contemporary, modern structure. I think it's absolutely gorgeous, but lots of people have differences of opinion when it comes to art and architecture, but I love it. It's basically a glass enclosure for the archaeological dig site that was referenced earlier that was undertaken by the Slave Trail Commission. Here's another view of it, and you can see it's enclosed in glass. And if you look through the glass into the building, you see the remnants of the archaeological dig. And then if you go into the building, this is what it might look like. And it would include walkways that take you down to the foundations and to the footings and patio of the Lumpkins Jail. The Lumpkins Jail was actually 8 or 10 feet below the current grade. It was down lower. And so this building basically encapsulates that archaeological dig and allows you to experience it again and walk on the very places where slaves were held in the Lumpkins jail slave pen. You would see artifacts, you would see exhibits, artifacts, exhibits. So it would be a museum that's based on an archaeological site that's so important to Richmond's history. In addition, there would be the slave burial ground would be heavily landscaped. It would be similar under one concept to the Virginia Museum for Fine Arts sculpture garden. Heavily landscaped, fountains, sculptures, memorials that would honor the slave that are buried there. Another component of the project is the complete redevelopment and renovation of the Main Street Station shed. So the shed right now has a metal skin on it that makes it so you can't see inside the building or see out of the building. That metal shed would be taken off and replaced with a glass curtain wall, and it would be lighted up at night almost like a lantern or a beacon. So as you're driving down 95, you would see this wonderful building and wonder what's going on there, and hopefully be enticed to stop and visit Shaka. There are no definitive plans for what would happen inside the building. It could be food related. It could be an incubator on the first floor for startup businesses. We saw that when we toured a similar building in Durham. It could be a welcome center, visitor center. There are all kinds of uses that could be made of the shed. The next element of the project is 17th Street Farmers Market. The 17th Street Farmers Market will be completely demolished and will start over. And it will be turned into a people place. Bryant Park in New York City is the model for this. Also, it might be similar to the Charlottesville Downtown Mall, where restaurants spill out onto the mall during lunchtime and dinner time. But it'll be a flexible place. So in the morning, it might be a pop-up tent farmer's market. At noon, it might be outdoor dining. In the evening, it might be a craft beer festival. Be a very flexible place where people would come. A real people place, a place for families, and a place for folks that live in this neighborhood. Heavily landscaped, very well maintained, just like the Canal Walk. This is a picture of the reopening of Franklin Street underneath the train shed. So you'll now be able to walk and cycle back and forth between this downtown central business district and the state capitol, and parking facilities on the other side of Franklin Street. Other side of the shed. Again, this is the site. This is the ball diamond here. Home base is here, first, second, third. Outfield here. And you can see the area is largely surface parking lots. We're not talking about destroying the historic fabric of Shockoe Bottom or tearing down a bunch of buildings. It's largely surface parking lots. This is the Exxon station right here. The Exxon station would not be changed. It's in private ownership and would stay the way it is. And that's the site. Trying to move faster. And this is characteristic of the area we're talking about. It's been neglected for decades. Chain link fences, broken up asphalt, neglected sidewalks. All of this would change. All the sidewalks get redone, street lights get redone, street trees get redone, pavement gets redone. This neighborhood all of a sudden gets a lot of attention and becomes a real destination for residents and visitors. This again is the site. Lisa is standing on the pitcher's mound, and you can imagine the outfield behind her. Talked about the site. The ballpark is largely sunken. There is no upper deck. So if you think about the diamond, which is mostly an upper deck, right? A great, big, tall, huge concrete monolithic structure. Some people are concerned about with the idea of plopping that down into this historic neighborhood in Chaco. That's not the plan at all. There is no upper deck. It's just a lower bowl with some upper level seats where the skyboxes are, the club seats. There are like 2 rows of seats in the upper deck that these guys will be sitting in right here in the skybox level. So this is Broad Street, and you walk across the plaza and down to your seat. And these are, again, the lower bowl seats. This is Broad Street again. It doesn't look like Broad Street. Imagine, if you will, maybe a yellow line going down. Clicker's losing its battery. That's Broad Street where those cars are. It doesn't look like Broad Street. Pretend like that's Broad Street. On the right is the Kroger and Hyatt Hotel and Apartments. On the left is the ballpark. You can see, you walk across the patio, the plaza, if you will, and then these are the seats down below street level. So you're, again, walking down your seat. This is another view from Broad Street. So if you're standing at the front door to the Hyatt Hotel, you look across Broad Street and you can see down into the stadium, you can see the field below. These are the lower bowl seats on the other side. And this is an apartment building that flanks it, just like apartment buildings and office buildings flank Camden Yards in Baltimore. One view of how 17th Street Farmers Market might be transformed. Again, a view of the stadium. A lot of people have asked about parking. They've asked about traffic, congestion, and parking. This is a state parking deck next to the Reconciliation statue. It has 1,450 spaces, and this deck is used by state employees during the day, and at night it would be used by ballpark visitors, fans. Here's how you get to it. You come down 95, like you're coming from the West End, or from North Side, or from Hanover, and you get off at the Franklin Street exit. Come on, let's get off the exit here. Okay, and you come to this stoplight. This exit will be, instead of 2 lanes, it will be 3 lanes. That's going to happen shortly anyway, regardless of the ballpark. You come to this stoplight, you go across that intersection. And I can't see the go one at a time. You go across that intersection and you take an immediate right into the parking deck. So you don't have to wander around on city streets and get lost downtown and deal with a lot of traffic congestion. You come off of the interstate onto the exit and go straight into the parking garage. There it is on a prettier day, and you see the Reconciliation statue there. It's a very nice facility. If you're coming from Chesterfield or from the downtown expressway coming north on 95, you go right by the clock tower. You don't even have to merge into the 95 traffic, but you get off immediately onto the exit 74C. You whip around that exit. That exit deposits you at Marshall Street at the parking garage that will be built as part of the hotel and apartment complex. So there'll be a big parking garage right here, and then you walk 1 block across to Broad Street, which is right here, and then you're into the stadium. So again, you're not having to fool with a lot of traffic in Chaco Bottom. You're getting right off the exit right into the parking garage. I'm skipping the financial information because Byron's going to cover that right after I talk about the boulevard. So one of the key elements of this plan is that it frees up the 60 acres on the boulevard for private economic development that generates lots and lots of taxes for the city. And who knows what that will look like. The Braves have got to play, the Squirrels have got to play there another couple of years, so there's no hurry in figuring out exactly what happens on the boulevard, because nothing can start until they're gone, until they've left that big parking lot, until they vacated the structure. But so there's a lot of opportunity now for community conversation about what should happen on the boulevard. And it could be low density, like Carytown, or it could be high density, like you might see in Virginia Beach Town Center, or new urban style developments in places like Dallas, or it could be as high density as the city wants, high rises or low rises. It could be as much as 3 million square feet, pays a lot of taxes and produces a lot of jobs. A lot of people say they don't want to have anything to do with a Walmart. That just happens to be an urban format Walmart. I'm hoping that it's not a Walmart myself. When I lived in Ashland, I protested against a Walmart that was coming to Ashland. But they do have new versions. It could be an urban format Target. It could be Trader Joe's. It could be REI. It could be IKEA. Or it could be something more low scale. This is another version of smaller scale urban Walmart. Again, I'm not talking about Walmart. Whole Foods, these are just images. These are just images that have been grabbed off the internet as possible possibilities for what could happen on the boulevard. This rendering just happens to show that there might be a new boulevard created at the boulevard. This is the boulevard now, this is Hermitage over here on the right. What if we created a new boulevard in between those two streets that is more like here in town? It's the walkable, pedestrian-oriented street that lots of development is attached to on either side. Again, the possibilities are pretty much endless. If it were a high-density development, you could imagine it could look like this, including high-rise apartments. I think I'm done, Byron. So Byron's going to get up now and talk to you about the financial impacts of the project. And again, this is mostly an economic development deal. It's not just about a ballpark. And Byron's going to take over from there. Thank you.
Thanks, Jack. Okay. Good morning, everybody. I'm going to try to answer 4 questions that generally come up about this project. The first question is, so why are we doing this? Why is the mayor proposing a project like this? And that can be answered in just a couple of bullet points. One is that the city, since 2009, has lost about $1.6 billion worth of assessed value. And what that translates into is a loss of about $13 million a year in property taxes. $13 million, that's over 100 police officers annually, the salary. Or it's about a third of the cost of building a new school like this. It's money that the city really needs in order to operate. And we're not the only city that's lost valuation. Counties have lost valuation too, and you can see the kinds of things they tried to do. Chesterfield rejected a meals tax, and Riceville barely passed one, but it's because they've had the same kind of constraints. Now, even though they've had those same constraints, one of the advantages that they have is our shoppers go into the counties to spend money, in part because we don't have a general retail store on the north side of the river. So we have to address the tax base issue. We also have the highest level of poverty in the region at about 26%. And that's not even counting the people who are near poverty. And we have the highest unemployment. So in order to address those issues, we have to expand our tax base. We have to increase the number of jobs. We have to provide services so that we can compete with the surrounding jurisdictions. Jack talked about the fact that we have momentum. People are moving into the city now. But they won't continue moving, or nor will they stay, unless there's something to keep them there. They've got to have good schools. They've got to have good roads. They want to feel safe. They want the attractiveness that we are bringing. The second question is, so what's the strategy? And it's expanding the tax base. It's providing those services. The third issue is, so what does this cost us? And how will you make it work? All right. In fact, I may be as bad as you. Jack is showing you this image, and I don't need to spend a lot of time on it. If you look at this and you compare what's happening on the boulevard, what's on the boulevard right now, and what we're proposing, there are really two different perspectives. In Chaco, the city owns about half of the land that we're talking about developing. And the other half is privately owned. The privately owned land is the land, it's primarily the land that floods. There are currently commitments from private developers and a baseball team to build sufficient development to pay the cost of a stadium. This deal, or the developers are ready to infill and move forward. And we can actually start construction later this year with a stadium, a grocery store, a hotel, apartments, and all of those things opening in 2016. There are commitments. On the boulevard, the city owns 60 acres. In order to develop the boulevard, we need to first decide what the concept will be. That is, we need to work with residents to determine what they'd like to see on the boulevard, as opposed to the structures that are there now that bring in no tax revenue. The structures that are there now are a city maintenance facility that repaired cars and trucks. Actually, we just emptied that out. There is another structure called the White House that has had schools procurement office in it and some facilities maintenance folks. That will be emptied out by the end of February. There's the diamond, where the only taxes that were collected were admissions taxes, and they were given back to RMA to manage the team, or to help pay for the stadium. And you also have other city facilities on the Hermitage roadside, public works, science shops, those kinds of things. So you have 60 acres that really produce no tax revenue at all. And we bought up facilities so we can move all of that stuff to mostly in the Commerce Road area, so we can help bring Commerce Road back. If and when citizens decide what they'd like to see on the boulevard, then we can begin that development. But basically, it's a blank slate. But we do know that it's at the confluence of 6495, and that's a very, very desirable area for development. Is the ballpark a good financial deal for the city? The answer is yes, and I'm going to show you why in a moment. Will fully developing the boulevard bring in more money for schools and neighborhoods? Yes, a lot more. We'll show you why. And will the city be on the hook if something goes wrong in the bottom with this development? The answer is no. I'll show you why. So let's talk about what a Chaco ballpark costs. The construction is about $40 million. The furnishings and equipment, that is the scoreboard, the sound system, the concession stand, all that stuff, it's another 5.3. The design costs are $3 million, and the contingency is about 3.6, and the land cost is about 4.4. So you got $56.3 million. The annual debt service, that 4.1 over 30 years, the annual debt service for 30 years is $4.1 million. Our Economic Development Authority will borrow money and build a stadium, and use what's called project revenue bonds to pay for it. The city won't pay anything. But how will the EDA pay for it? The Squirrels could agree to pay $1.7 million a year for 30 years. They will also generate the admissions taxes and sales taxes that they currently generate, but instead of going to RMA, it will be captured by the city and put back into this project. And the new development generated by grocery store, hotels, parking, and apartments will generate between $1.8 and $2 million a year. So total is somewhere between 3.9 and 4.3 as compared to $4.1 million that is the debt service cost. So that should cover the actual cost. This is conservative because there are other properties that are around what's being developed. And those properties, their assessed values will go up. That means there'll be additional tax dollars coming to the city that we have not accounted for here, purposely. So the other question is, well, how will you do it if the neighborhood floods? And what you see here is the outline of the floodplain. Actually runs through here too. So we're talking about addressing the floodplain through infrastructure improvements. About half of that $15 million is to address flood mitigation, and the balance of it is to move utilities to make the area more attractive and more useful. Now, we're using this structure to address utilities as opposed to trying to fix the flooding. We're talking about mitigating. Fixing it would cost $200 to $250 million. Jack talked about that a moment ago. Hughes Tunnel would have to be bored under Chaco into the river, back to the river. The annual debt service payment on this $15 million is about $925,000 a year for 30 years. That's what the city would pay to get us a ballpark, the grocery store, the apartments, and et cetera. And I say that because the other $4 million, I talked to you about what the schools would pay, I talked to you about the taxes. This part of it is guaranteed by the developers. Now, how do we know we have a guarantee? We have development agreements that will be finalized once this is approved, that will say, here is the assessed value that we've attached to what you said you were going to build, based upon the number, as an example, the number of apartments that are going to be built, how much they'll cost. Using a figure that we always use for apartments. We'll go to the assessor, we've gone to the assessor, he says they're valued at about $102,000 each, 750 apartments times 102,000 yields a certain amount of revenue. Mr. Developer, you agree that you're going to pay that amount of revenue for 30 years, not less than that. Now, the developers have agreed to that. The same thing with the grocery store, the same thing with the developer of the hotel. So we know how much revenue we'll get. Have we ever done this before? Yes. There is a development at 9th and Canal called the Gateway Project. That developer had to sign an agreement for a minimum amount of taxes in order for us to agree to his project, or what are the terms of this project. So we know the minimum amount of taxes we're going to get. If the assessed value comes in higher, he has to pay the higher amount. If it comes in lower, he still has to pay the minimum amount. So are the other costs besides the flood mitigation costs? Yes. Slavery and Freedom Heritage Site. About $30 million is what we assume, is what we budget. Of that $30 million, about $25 million is specifically for the heritage site. That's the slave trail, the Memphis jail area, the slave burial ground. How do we know we're going to get that money? The outgoing governor, Governor McDonald, put $11 million in his budget. The condition was that the city agreed to put in $5 million and dedicate land. The mayor's proposal includes $5 million for that project, and the mayor proposes to dedicate the land for a museum. And the business community has agreed to raise the other $14 million. The annual debt service for our $5 million for 30 years is about $460,000. So you've got $460 plus $925. So just about $1.5 million would be the city's commitment for what in total is about a $76 million investment for the city. $1.5 million a year. One of the questions is that's been asked, another question is, what happens if you develop baseball on the boulevard? And a twist on that question has been, since we initially showed baseball on the boulevard with surface parking, which in effect reduced the amount of land that could be developed, because there was about 23 acres of surface parking in addition to the ballpark. We went back and recalculated. We added everything that was assigned initially, which is the construction of the ballpark, furnishings and equipment design, contingency, infrastructure on the boulevard, demolition of the existing stadium, relocation of the other buildings on the site. This is the net cost of relocation. This is assuming we'll sell land and use some of the proceeds to tear down buildings and relocate people on other city-owned land. The heritage site, which everybody agrees that we should contribute to, and a new parking deck. Now, this is a parking deck that would have 2,500 parking spaces, which is equivalent to what's on the boulevard right now, at $13,000 per space. That comes to $32.5 million. So, the cost of developing the boulevard would be $99.7 million. The cost of developing the bottom is $76 million. The annual debt service for the boulevard would be $7 million a year for 30 years. We currently have no commitments from any developer to build anything on the boulevard. So that's what the city would have to come up with until some development came online. $7 million a year compared to $1.5 million. Going back to the bottom. What if something goes wrong? Well, developers have to sign development agreements to say that they will start their project when we start ours. We will not start our project until they're ready to go into the ground. The reason is they have to be finished when the stadium opens. Because if they're not, that means we won't collect the taxes. So we'll be on a timeline that is coterminous with theirs. They have to pay at least the real estate taxes we need to pay the debt. Even if they don't make the money, they'll have to put up guarantees. And if that fails, and they build a building, then we'll have a lien. We'll be behind whoever their lender is, but their lender will own their property and still pay the property taxes. What if the squirrels leave? Well, they could leave now, because their agreement ends at the end of this year. But they agreed to sign a 30-year lease. If they leave, they still owe us the money for the balance of the lease. It's legally enforceable. It will be a contract. However, the Eastern Baseball League has stated that they will stand behind them. That is, they are a franchisee of that baseball league. If they fail, the Eastern Baseball League will step in, pay their obligations, and then sell the franchise to someone else who would be bound by the same terms of the lease. In the last 40 years, they've never had to do that. What happens if the cost overruns from the grocery store or the hotel? It's not our problem. That would be the problem of the developer. It's 100% privately funded. They have to figure out how to make the business work. The developers that we're talking to have other businesses here in town. They've been successful. What happens if the public ballpark costs more than was expected? What we've done on this building that you're standing in, or sitting in, the jail that's being built, the Huguenot High School, is we have negotiated something called guaranteed maximum prices with the developer. That is, they will do a design, build, construction. They know what is in the design and what it's likely to cost to build it. They give us a guaranteed maximum price. If it costs more than that, they have to eat that cost. If it costs less, we share in the savings in some negotiated way. The only way it will cost us more money is if we ask them to do more than what was originally planned. So, how will the Chaco ballpark affect our debt capacity? That is, we have a certain amount of debt we can issue based upon state law, and a certain amount that we can issue based upon policy within the city. With state law, we can issue probably another $800 million or $700 million worth of debt. We won't. With our local policies, we are more constrained. So it doesn't matter what the state law allows us to do. We have a local policy that constrains us a lot more. We can't spend more than 10% of our annual budget on debt. Because we will issue this debt through the EDA, and because there's revenues to support it, our policies allow us to not count that against our debt capacity. So the ball stadium itself will not affect our debt capacity at all. That won't stop us from issuing more debt for another school or for roads. Because the construction is self-supporting. I'm going to go back to how we came up with how much in taxes we should get from the developers. An example is, we would look at the type of building, the size of the building, and determine the value of that building. We work with the assessor, who doesn't work for the mayor. He's independent of us. He looks at similar buildings around town that would be of say a Class A office space or apartments of this kind. What do they cost per square foot? And assesses the value to them. So $102,000 per apartment, 750 apartments, is $7.9 million, $76.9 million, excuse me. Times our real estate tax rate, which is $1.20 per hundred. And that's the new revenue every year just from the apartments. A similar calculation will be done for the grocery store, similar calculation will be done for the parking structure. And our numbers were verified by the city's financial advisors, who also don't work for the mayor. They work for the city, and they report to the council also. And they also have a reputation, they've been around for 150 years, and they serve not just us, but lots of cities around the state and around the country. And if they do shoddy work, they'll lose their other customers. So, what do we need from the boulevard to pay for the Chaco project? Zero. If you develop the bottom and nothing ever gets developed on the boulevard, it just ends up being a fallow field, which would make no sense. But you wouldn't need to take any money from the boulevard to pay for the development in the bottom. We tried to structure it so that it was that both would be standalone projects. What that also means is all the revenue from the boulevard will be brand new revenue with no attachment to it that could be used for other projects within the city. I started out saying that one of the key elements of the plan was to grow the city's tax base. This shows what our assessed value was in 2009. You can see by 2011 that it dropped dramatically. And this is where we are estimating it to be right now. Now the drop-off is slowing, and it's beginning to grow on its own. What the blue bars show is what happens if the assessed value that we've attached to the boulevard and the bottom actually comes to pass. These are our estimates. So you can see it begins to close that gap, and by 2018, we're actually above what we were in 2009. So, the plan expands the tax base, generates more revenue that can be used for schools and neighborhoods. It creates jobs. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Thank you, Mr. Marshall.